A very good morning, students. Today we'll be learning about rural settlements. Rural settlements are those where people are mostly engaged in agriculture and allied activities like livestock. Urban settlements are those where residents are engaged in non-agricultural activities. In fact, rural and urban nomenclatures depict the modes of community life. A village has a community bond while the city life is heterogeneous, alien, incongruous and disparate. We may think of a spectrum with the rural community standing at one extreme and a large metropolis at the other. Between the two are all grades of urbanization. This is why there is increasing emphasis on rural-urban continuum. Well, objectives of today's class. In today's class, we'll learn about types of rural settlements, patterns of rural settlements in various regions in India, and the morphology of rural settlements and socio-spatial structure of rural settlements. Well, let's begin with types of rural settlements. On the basis of structure, size, growth of population and functions, the rural settlements may be broadly divided into two categories: the compact or nucleated settlements and the dispersed or scattered settlements. The compact settlements have a well-developed network of roads, streets, lanes and gullies, not only in the settlement but also in the fields and the surrounding areas. In the dispersed or scattered settlement, only one family residence is the core, which stands isolated from the other houses. Indian rural settlements may be divided into the following categories: scattered settlements and dispersed settlements. Scattered settlements or the semi-sprinkle settlements. Such settlements are characterized by the presence of several smaller purvas of the hamlets and several individual habitations spreading over the entire mausa of the village. The main site may not be distinguishable. The number of such hamlets may vary from 5 to 10. In these loosely connected settlements, a street pattern is lacking and the straggling residences are separated by cultivated fields. These settlements manifest the development of individualistic tendencies for economic advantages and are surely indicative of peaceful conditions. Economically, they may claim approbation, but socially they are not conducive for the development of community life. Now let's move on to the next type of settlement, the dispersed or the sprinkled settlements. The dispersed settlement is characterized by complete diffusion of the farmsteads over the entire mausa land. What is significant is the large distance between dwellings compared with the congested homes of the compact settlements. The main causes of dispersed settlements are mountainous and forested areas, poor soil and hydrography, scarcity of arable land, too hot or humid conditions, or too cold regions. Such dispersed settlements are quite common in the mountainous, semi-desert areas and the areas of less productive soils of Aravalis. The caste prejudice and the existence of low agricultural castes and tribes have been partly responsible for dispersed settlements. The psychological change in social values has also promoted individualistic tendencies and dispersion of the rural settlements. The impression gained from such a landscape is one of melancholy and isolation. Even the stranger is lost in the inhospitable labyrinth. Here, the parochial economic considerations have done away with the communal life of compact village. Now let's look at the patterns of rural settlements. Patterns of rural settlements have been defined as a relationship between one house to the other. Pattern means the geometric form or design of the village settlement. The pattern of a settlement may be easily identified by reading and observing a large-scale map or the topographical sheet published by the Survey of India, Dehradun. It may be mentioned that the term pattern of settlement deals only with compact and semi-compact settlements. The site of the village and the surrounding topographical features have a direct bearing on the form and design of the rural settlement. Moreover, the socio-economic and cultural factors also give different forms to the rural settlements. The rural settlements have varied patterns in the arrangement of their streets and houses. They are visible in the rural landscape of the country. A definite layout or a village plan is developed only in rectangular or linear settlements where the controlling factor is the physical character of the site, which determines its form since the very inception. Although the cultural factors of push and pull have brought tangible modification in their growth process, The rural settlements may be classified under the following broader categories like rectangular pattern, linear pattern, circular or semicircular pattern, star-like pattern, triangular pattern, nebula pattern, terraced pattern, amorphous pattern. Now let's look at them briefly and individually. Rectangular pattern. Rectangular settlements develop generally in the intensively cultivated productive plains of the country. Their geometric shape is either rectangular or square. The lanes of the rectangular settlement are generally straight and meet each other at right angles. The rectangular rural settlement enjoy universal importance. In India, they are the heritage of our ancient past when villages were mostly planned in a rectangular or square pattern. Our system of land measurement, the biga, has acted as a consistent factor in maintaining their form. When the cultivated plots and orchards all conform to almost rectangular pattern, the settlement follows the character. The village streets conform to the field patterns. Now let's look at the next pattern, the linear pattern. Linear settlements are those which develop in a line and acquire a linear shape. Such settlements are found in the narrow valleys of the mountains along higher levees, oxbow lakes or abandoned channels. They are also found along the roads, canals and the railway tracks. In the mountainous valleys, at the slopes and along the river banks, the danger of recurring floods are restrictive forces that restrict the lateral expansion of the settlement. Such settlements are numerous in the lesser Himalaya, Shivaliks, hill states of northeast India, eastern and western Ghats. The next type of the pattern, circular and semicircular pattern. Circular and semicircular settlements generally develop around a pond, a lake, a crater or a sea coast. Since people prefer to stay closer to the water body, they construct their houses close to the pond or the lake. In due course of time, such settlements acquire circular or semicircular shape. There are many settlements in Kathiawar, Rann of Kutch, where the fishermen and salt producers have developed circular or semicircular patterns of rural settlements. The crater or the mouth of the extinct volcano is also a place where circular settlements may be seen. People of some of these circular settlements earn their livelihood from the water bodies either by selling fish, water nuts, grasses, lotus roots or by providing services to the tourists, pleasure seekers, picnic goers and aesthetic beauty lovers. Or the star-like pattern. The star-like pattern of the rural settlements develop at the sites and places where several roads converge. In fact, such settlements are associated with the nodal locations of settlements where several roads converge at a site and the rows of houses spread along the roads in all the directions. This pattern is mainly found in the productive agricultural tracts in which the nature of roads is dense. Such settlements can be seen in the productive plains of Punjab, Haryana and the upper Ganga Yamuna Doab of western UP. Next, we have the triangular pattern. The triangular patterns of the rural settlements develop at the confluence of the rivers or where two roads converge in the form of a triangle. The lateral expansion of dwellings at the confluence is constrained by the rivers. Consequently, the shape of the settlement becomes triangular. Next, we have the nebula pattern. When the shape of a settlement resembles a nebula, it is known as a nebula pattern of rural settlement. The arrangement of the roads in such a settlement is generally circular, which ends at a central location, nucleus of the village. Next, we have the terraced patterns. In the mountainous areas, the cultivators develop terraced fields for cultivation and orchards. They construct their houses along the terraces. Such settlements may be seen in Arunachal Pradesh. Now we have the amorphous pattern, when the village land is dotted with several hamlets and individual farmsteads, all being linked by the footpaths of the main settlement. No definite pattern is discernible. Such a loose pattern may be termed as amorphous settlement. Now let's look at rural settlements in various regions in India. Let's begin with rural settlements in Himalaya. The settlements in the Himalaya are either semi-compact, scattered or dispersed in the intermontane valleys like that of Kashmir, Kullu Manali and Doon Valley. The rural settlements are largely compact and semi-compact. In the higher altitudes, especially in the alpine pastures which are margs in Kashmir, the settlements are dispersed. The undulating topography, cold climate and paucity of agricultural land favors the growth of small scattered and dispersed settlements. The Gujars and the Bakrawalas of Kashmir, the Bhutias of the Himachal and Kumaon and the Lepchas of Sikkim who practice transhumanists construct their permanent houses in the plain areas to pass their winters and temporary houses, kothas and bandis in the alpine pastures of Kashmir to graze their goats in the summer season. Most of the Gujars and Bakrawalas of Jammu and Kashmir have their permanent settlements in Kathua, Jammu, Rajouri and Poonch districts, where they pass their winters and engage in agriculture, while in summer season they ascend into the alpine pastures to utilize the nutritious grasses. In Nagaland, villages generally occupy flat tops of the hills, spurs and ridges between 1000 and 2000 meters above the sea level. Security and defense against invaders is a main consideration for site of settlement in Nagaland. In Manipur, the Kukis or the Nagas practicing shifting cultivation construct their temporary huts in the Jhum fields, but the permanent settlements are there, that is, the permanent houses in the settlement are not shifted. The Lushai tribe of Mizoram construct their linear settlements in valleys on the hilltops and along the roads. Same is the case with the Chakma tribes of Tripura. Now let's look at the rural settlements in northern plains of India. The northern plains of India are highly productive and intensively cultivated. Irrigation by canals, wells and tube wells is adequately available to the crops. In the plains of Punjab, Haryana and western UP, rural settlements are uniformly spaced and have large compact size. In the northern plains, the main types of settlements in the Bhangar tracts are compact and semi-compact, while in the Khadar and the Beth land of the rivers, which are frequently inundated during the rainy season, the rural settlements are either semi-compact, scattered or dispersed. In western Rajasthan, where the landscape is characterized by sand dune, the rural settlements are generally of semi-compact type. In eastern Rajasthan, the settlements are, however, compact and large. The scattered settlements are very common in the Rad plain in the West Bengal, Dwars and Sundarban delta. In the Brahmaputra valley, villages are generally agglomerated along the river levees and transport arteries. In Brahmaputra valley, villages are smaller in size, in which houses are separated by bamboo fences. Machan type of houses on wooden pillars are constructed in low-lying and flood-prone areas where boat is the only mode of transport during the rainy season. Rural settlements in peninsular India. Peninsular India has great diversity in its topography and relief. Consequently, mixed type of rural settlements are found in the peninsular part of the country. In the dissected hills of Mewad and Alwar, isolated farmsteads, locally known as dhani, are dotted in the long narrow valleys. Jaipur and its vicinity are characterized by compact and semi-compact settlements. The southern part of Aravalis, that is the Udaipur division, have isolated and dispersed types of rural settlements. In Bundelkhand, settlements have been developed near the points of water supply, which are by and large scattered. Settlements in the Chota Nagpur plateau are generally clustered and semi-clustered type. In the fertile tracts of Bhagelkhand, the settlements are compact. The lava plateau region of Maharashtra has compact settlements near the sources of water, but semi-compact and dispersed between Pune and Solapur. The Sahyadris have a predominance of isolated settlements. Now let's look at the rural settlements in coastal regions. The patterns of rural settlements differ from each other. In the delta tracts of the Mahanadi, Godavari, Krishna and Kaveri, the rural settlements are located at the elevated levees which are free from floods. These deltas are highly productive and intensively cultivated. Farming is organized and has thus promoted the tendency of compact settlement. Along the eastern coast, just above the high tide mark, there are several fishing villages of different shapes and patterns. The Malabar coast is dominated by large-sized compact settlements. There are, however, scattered and dispersed settlements in the areas of coconut and cashew plantation. In the Rann of Kutch, there are semi-compact and scattered settlements of small size having 1 or 2 rooms. These semi-compact and dispersed settlements are widely spaced. Now let's look at the morphology of the rural settlements. The morphology of the rural settlements deal with the land use and the internal structure of the settlement. Each village of India has 2 components, the built-up area, that is the Basti settlement, and the open area or the fields. The built-up area consists of the arrangement of houses, house of the village headman, that is Haveli, cattle sheds, roads, streets, ponds, cultural places like temples, mosques, gurudwaras, or churches, shops, chowks, etc. The open area consists of the fields, which are workplaces where the cultivators grow their crops and the dairy farmers keep their cattle. Doxiadis, one of the leading settlement geographers, has identified four main parts within the morphology of the settlement. These include fields or the homogeneous part, roads, streets and lanes, built-up area or basti, and the special or the cultural area consisting of the religious places, panchayat ghar, chowk, morang or the young club or the youth club in tribal areas, and other cultural places. In almost all the settlements, the built-up area is surrounded by fields and the pasture lands, and the two are connected with each other with chuck roads and the footpaths. The main site of the village, generally on the elevated area, is occupied by the first settler or the upper caste and the landlords or the zamindars. This area forms the nucleus of the settlement around which expands the village in subsequent period. In the vicinity of the main settlement, they may develop some hamlets dominated by lower caste and landless workers. These settlements in the vicinity of the main settlement are known by different names: Marza, Purva, Nagla, Tola, etc. in northern plains of India. Around each settlement, there are concentric zones of soils. The agricultural land in the vicinity of the settlement is highly productive and is known as Goira or Gonda in western UP, Punjab and Haryana, and Gauhan or Goind in eastern UP and Bihar. The outer fields which are less productive are called Manjha in Punjab, Khalsa, Dhahar, Raitala, Solta, Sotla in Haryana and UP. In almost all the compact villages of the Great Plains of India, the maximum socio-economic activities are confined in and around the nucleus. Socio-spatial structure of the rural settlements. In northern plains of India, it has been observed by some of the leading settlement geographers that there is a close impact of caste structure on the morphology of the rural settlements. For example, the upper caste like Brahmins, Rajputs and Kayastha occupy the elevated best sides of the village, and the houses are relatively large with courtyards and separate apartments for each married women. In opposition to this, the low-ranking castes, especially untouchables or the Shudras, have single room huts or houses shared by all members of the family and at times by cattle and without much open space or a courtyard. The settlements of this type can be observed in the Ganga Yamuna Doab in the Rohilkhand division as well as in Haryana and eastern UP. Moreover, the lower castes generally occupy the peripheral areas. In fact, the Chamars, the Mochis, Pasis, Jatwas, Mehtars and Dhanuk construct their houses slightly away from the houses of the upper caste. The hamlets and the purvas of the lower caste are known as Airan, Chamarkhenda, Jatwara, Lodhia, Pasivada, Mochpura, etc. These hamlets together with their inhabitants are closely linked with the main site under the Jajmani system and act like single functional unit. These two concepts of social space and functional integration have much relevance in understanding the socio-spatial structure of the Indian villages and have been displayed by Professor K.N. Singh through his religio, ritual and secular dominance models. Rural settlements are the ones in which most people are engaged in agriculture, forestry, mining and fishery. A rural settlement has often been called an agricultural workshop. It cannot be separated from the land whose use it ensues. Its type, shape and pattern are generally in accordance with the kind of work, the agricultural techniques and the way the soil is used. Thank you. And